Hello everyone, welcome once again. In the previous session, we talked about Pareto chart, brainstorming sessions, that how do we brainstorm to identify potential causes of the problem. So brainstorming as a method that we looked at, and we used Pareto chart to put them into a manner where we can identify what are the top issues that we should focus. So remember that we shall use brainstorming as a method to use a scientific method for generating these potential causes, because what might happen is that you may realize that in a brainstorming session we may be talking about some similar looking ideas, or at times we may be focusing at a particular issue, and there may be 4 to 5 categories or areas in a process that we might be focusing at. But in a brainstorming session we don't want to be discussing everything in one go. So we want to be focusing at the key areas of the process, and I want people to discuss all these key areas rather than discussing everything in one go and everything as a high level. So we should not have a problem where we get lost in the discussion, that everything get mixed up. So in order to avoid this, we use a very effective, very widely used and very commonly used brainstorming method called as Fishbone diagram, also called as cause and effect diagram, that you can see on my screen. It looks like a fishbone where there is a head and then there are different bones. Those bones are the key areas what we look at. This is also called as Ishikawa diagram, which is named after a Japanese industrial engineer, Kaoru Ishikawa, and it is named after Kaoru Ishikawa, so also called as Ishikawa diagram. So cause and effect diagram, Fishbone diagram, or Ishikawa diagram are some names for this method. It is a tool for organizing the brainstorming ideas. Now, however, we said that when we are doing a brainstorming, similar looking ideas should be organized. We did not discuss how to organize it. So this is a tool that will help us to organize all the ideas that we have generated or collected from the brainstorming session that just took place, that we just discussed. So this is a very good tool to organize them into unique categories or unique areas of the problem. It provides a common understanding of the problem and exposes the potential causes of the problem. It will help us to visualize the relationship between a problem and possible underlying causes. So the head of the fish is where we write the problem. So head of the fish will be the problem why, where we will write why does it take a lot of time for the college to complete the admission process. That's the why. And now this why, there are different areas that we shall look at: administration, registration, student, and the exam. So all these are the area where we should focus at, and we'll ask people to discuss only the problem in the exam related, or the registration related, or administration related, or the student related issues. So all these areas are separate, and together they are responsible for a late admission or a high time in the admission process. So these are all the areas we need to focus separately as we are generating the ideas. Lot of idea we are generating, but we are organizing the ideas into these areas. So that can help us, where to focus. So cause and effect diagram will help us to understand where to focus specifically, and with respect to the why that we want to solve here. So if you look at my screen, where I'm saying we have to state the problem in a form of a question. Why does it take a lot of time to admit a student in a college? And then label and that becomes the why, that becomes the head of the fishbone, as I just mentioned. And we identify the categories of causes and label the branches of the fishbone. So the branches of the fishbone that you saw, those branches that you saw, they become the key areas where we need to look at. And we ask the question called why do we have this problem? Team discuss those issues. So that part comes later, but first we are using the fishbone diagram to organize it better, and we can focus on each of the categories. So I'd like to show you some examples that how a fishbone might look like. So if you see on my screen, you can see the why, or the problem here is that the pump does not turn on. Now pump is not turning on, that's a problem why. Now there are areas there where you can look at the pump does not turn on. The common areas will be, you might want to understand power may be a problem, or motor may be a problem, switch can be a problem, or pump can be a problem. These are the 4 areas or 4 categories in which you want to look at, or one of them or all of them or a combination of them may be responsible for pump not getting turned on. Now, when I'm discussing the problem at a high level, let's understand this. Why do we need to categorize or find these specific areas to discuss the problem? Because when you do not have these categories, you discuss the problem at a high level, you scratch the surface. We are not able to get inside the problem. But when we break the problem into small pieces or small areas, then we can discuss each area, get inside it in a detailed manner, discuss it in detail. We can go further deep inside. That the category or the area can be divided into sub area and then sub area. So you see, we can deep dive, we can discuss it as much as possible, discuss in as many detail as possible. Otherwise, if we do not have these categories, we'll be talking only at the high level. So you see, we have 4 categories for pump not turning on: motor, power, pump, and switch. Now under the motor, why motor is not starting? A key issue within motor can be it is burned out. Why it is burned out? Because it is old. So you see, I'm getting inside the problem and then inside and then inside. Similarly, if you talk about switch, if I talk about switch, that switch problem, what could be potential problem in switch? One of the potential problem in switch is switch can be broken. Switch is broken. Now you don't stop at switch is broken. You want to ask why again? Why switch is broken? It may be vandalism, somebody broke it, or it may be it was broken when we purchased it. So we need to find why switch is broken. We are here to find the root causes. We will not stop it by asking what is the problem in switch. Switch is broken, why switch is broken? Then another problem can be there is no contact of switch with the motor or with the electricity board. Why there is no contact? Because it is corroded. There is a corrosion that has happened. Now you don't stop by just asking why. Okay, there is a corrosion, fine. Why there is corrosion? Because there is high humidity. Now you cannot ask why high humidity. Now you know that humidity is a problem because of which there is a corrosion on the switch and there is no contact with the circuit or with the board. You would like to avoid situation, so you would like to cover the switch in a plastic wrapping or something that will ensure that the humidity is not responsible for corrosion. So that might save the switch. So that's how we build solution later on. So we need to ask these questions multiple times and we need to get inside the problem as much as possible. And that's where Fishbone as a diagram help us to organize this entire activity. Otherwise you will write it on a post-it or an Excel sheet, different levels. But Fishbone, this picture, the graphical representation of this discussion, it's a very beautiful representation where we can get inside the problem as much as possible. And to give you another example of a fishbone, like for example this fishbone or you see on the screen can look as simple as that. It's not very complex. But if you move to the next screen, you see there are 6 categories here. It can look as detailed fishbone as this, where we are talking that late payments for some invoices. So it has more potential causes, and for each potential causes we are getting inside and further inside. For example, if you will see under the invoice status as a category, we are saying that invoice status is a problem. Under invoice status there are multiple issues, the PO, the holds. Under PO also there can be an issue, so we can go further inside and inside. So fishbone diagram can look as complex like this, or it can look even more complex like this. As you can see here, I see there are at least 20-25 ideas that we have gathered from this fishbone, and that's how we have organized them. Or a fishbone can look even more complex like this. Now there are 7 categories here. Typically in a fishbone there should not be more than 6 to 7 categories or 6 to 7 areas to discuss or look at. Otherwise you will find there are categories which are similar to some other categories, or the ideas in a category are overlapping with another category. That should not happen. So you need to have not more than 6 to 7 category. 5 to 7 is also a decent number. So you see in this fishbone it is even further complex and detailed. More and more people are discussing, more and more ideas will come. And or a fishbone, if you see my screen, it can look even very, very complex like this. We have 7 total categories here, and we have around 30-40 ideas that we are seeing in this fishbone. So this is a beautiful way of organizing all the ideas that we receive in a brainstorming session using a fishbone diagram that can help us to get inside the problem in different areas as much as possible, and we find the potential root causes. Now mind it, they're all potential root causes, none of them are the actual root causes. They're only what people think, they're only assumptions, none of them have been validated yet, none of them talk about that this is the root cause, we don't know it yet. So we are only generating as many potential causes as possible. So now one more challenge that comes with these many potential causes, if you are doing a detailed brainstorming, you might receive as many potential causes as you see on the screen, 30, 40, 50, sometimes 100 potential causes. If we have so many potential causes, then can we focus on all of them? Answer is no. Can we discuss all of them? No. Can we look into all of them? Answer is no. So what do we do? So in order to solve this problem, when we have so many potential ideas coming from the team, or potential solution, potential problem that people see, that what is causing this, what is the next step? We talk about a matrix to prioritize the ideas that we have gathered. As you can see on my screen here, we are talking about a very common matrix called as impact and the control matrix here. So when we are prioritizing any potential cause, we look at two aspects of a potential cause. One is how much control do we have on that potential cause. Second thing, we look at how much impact a potential cause will have on the overall problem. So two aspects we look at, or two parameters we look at while we are prioritizing an idea. When we put into a matrix like this here, you see for both these two parameters we have two things. One is the low and high of both the parameters. High control, low control, low impact, high impact. So control is on the y-axis, low and high. Impact is on the x-axis, low and high. It is not specific. You can put impact on the y-axis also, contact on the low y-axis also. That's not a hard rule. You can put any of them in any axis. So it can be that way. So now the first quadrant on the right side, the top right corner, which basically you will have four quartiles here. The first quadrant talks about ideas which have a high control and high impact. So once you have collected a lot of ideas, number one in brainstorming, second you use the fishbone to organize all of them into different areas. The third step is you use this matrix where you ask the team. Now team has three jobs to do. One is to generate list of ideas. Second is to organize them into a fishbone diagram in different categories. Third is like they have to prioritize. So we ask a question. So guys, according to you, idea number one that we had gathered, that we have agreed also, how much control do you think we have on this idea? So control mean is, if the process is beyond the organization point of view, or it is not in the scope of this project, then it will be out of control. If as a project leader you do not have any control, it can be policy, environment related issue, law related, government related issue, we will have no control over it. Impact can be very high, but control will be less. For example, we take time to reach office. Traffic has a big impact on the time we take, but control is low, almost no control, but impact is very high. So this is an example of a low control, low impact. The mode we choose. Now the mode we are choosing a cab, personal taxi, or a shared taxi, own car, own bike. So all these are, which mode do you choose will determine the time that you take. If you are choosing a shared taxi, it will take more time because the taxi driver has to drop people. If you are choosing your own taxi, then it will take less time, of course. So here you see the mode of transport, you have high control and you have a high impact also. So all the ideas that you have selected or you have chosen in that list, you have to put them here in different quartiles. You have to arrange them. All the ideas which are selected as high control and high impact, they are the first priority that should be looked upon, that should be solved first. So if you go back to the Kano diagram, there we talked about the must-have from the customer point of view. So high impact and high control ideas are the must-have of the problem. First to be looked at, first to be solved at. Then the second quadrant, which is the left side, right left to this particular quadrant, which are the high control but low impact. Now we have very high control on this idea that we can solve right away. Impact is not that great, but it is in high control, so let's solve it now. it might happen in future that you may lose control also. So if whatever you have control now, solve it right away. Then the third quadrant, which is the bottom right corner quadrant, which talks about high impact but low control. Now the impact is very high, like I talked about the traffic. You have very high impact, the low control. These are the third priority. Like our second priority in the Kano was good to have. So the second quadrant is good to have. Third quadrant is high impact, low control. It is, as we do not have much control on these things, we may not look at it right now. We may look at it later on in the future. And then the last quadrant, left side, left bottom, low control, low impact. These are the ideas that delight us. Let's not look at them right away, or we can't even focus on them right now. So when we have solved all the issues in that list, then only we may probably go back to this list and then see that if we can solve any of them, because we do not have any control and there is hardly any impact of these ones. Maybe you can scrap them also. You may not want to look at it. You may put them into a parking lot, a parking list we call it. So that's how we prioritize it. So this entire process of brainstorming and organizing the ideas and prioritizing has a 3-step process. As a part of brainstorming, you brainstorm to generate a lot of ideas, and you review a list. You try to get a final list of ideas. Second step is you put them into an organization. You organize all the ideas using a fishbone diagram, where you have 5 to 7 categories in which you organize these ideas. These categories also have to be agreed by everyone. Then the third step is you put them into a control impact matrix to prioritize them, that out of the 100 ideas that we have gathered, we are going to look at the ideas in the first quadrant, which is high impact, high control. That will not be more than 10 to 12. So you see, a brainstorming session might give you 100 ideas and you agree on 60. These 60 get into the fishbone, and from 60 we talk about the top 12 ideas which we are going to discuss, because we have a high impact, high control. So from the Kano, this is what we are going to focus as of now. Rest of the ideas we'll look at later on. So continuous improvement will continue. So that's what we do in the first set of brainstorming session. Now, but these are again all potential causes. None of them are root causes. We have to validate all these potential causes. So we'll understand how to validate the potential causes and how to find the actual root cause. That we'll see in the second part of brainstorming and find the actual root cause. Thank you for watching. This is Shivendra Sharma.